in a galaxy far, far away.
So I go on to the Facebook Star Wars boards for The Mandalorian and then Star Wars memes. And a lot of mostly guys between the ages of like 30 and 40, maybe a little younger, are crying for a reboot of the original trilogy. Which, of course, those of us who actually grew up with the original trilogy are like, you can't do that. That is like trying to reboot the Mona Lisa or Michelangelo's Pieta. It's just not possible. And every time they try to do it, they make it worse. So what's going on here? First off, there's some truth that they have to stay with the Skywalker saga. And I'll tell you why it's a truth, and it was brought up by a film director just recently. Okay, so they need to, all right? But what's going on here? Is it the fact that this generation doesn't have Star Wars, or it doesn't have good Star Wars? And why should they reboot the original trilogy to have good Star Wars? Right? So it's a generation that grew up with things being remade. Superman, not as good as the original with Christopher Reeves. You could talk a lot about the different reboots of different franchises that just sucked. So Matthew Vaughn, who is, among other things, the director of Kingsman, which I thought was a horribly boring show and I didn't like it, is talking about it in this article in Variety, and I was aghast. He wants to reboot the old trilogy, the original trilogy, for a new generation of Star Wars fans. And of course, he made sure that us fans, the people that grew up with it, would not be insulted. First off, the sequel trilogy is the reboot, and it failed miserably. Second of all, you could not approach the lightning in a bottle that Lucas created by rebooting the original trilogy. This is the fucking stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. Now, he's pissed off at the way they treated Luke and Han. Okay. He's pissed off at the way they treated Leia. Okay. But why do we have to reboot the original trilogy? Why can't we just put the sequel trilogy in a corner and act like it doesn't exist, which is kind of what they're doing right now? See, this is a problem. Hollywood has got to get out of the mentality of reboots. They're not creative. They're not received well. They're not written properly. And there's no spirit of creativity that is heartfelt in them, right? So, but let's talk about this further because it's interesting.
You are unwise to lower your defenses.
When the original trilogy came out, it created something of a whole new culture within the film industry. It gave science fiction and fantasy the boost that it needed. It was wholly new, it was wholly creative, and it was written and created out of passion and out of love for filmmaking. Now, let's talk about actors to take the parts in a reboot. Okay. Well, we had Han Solo recast, with a balding 5'5" dwarf who couldn't act his way out of a wet bag, who has all the masculinity of a neutered poodle, awful Ehrenreich. They didn't cast it right. He was cast in that role because Steven Spielberg basically called in a marker with Kathleen Kennedy. That's it. That is bullshit. That is fucking bullshit. Now, had the movie been a proper Han Solo origin movie, you could have had Anthony Ingruber play him because he looks so much like Harrison Ford as a young man that it would have worked. It would have, people would not have walked away going, what the hell was that? Because the problem with Ehrenreich is he and Ford are not even the same species. They're not. Luke Skywalker, Mark Hamill. Now, a lot of people, especially on the Mandalorian board, complain and whine like little bitches that deepfakes creep them out. I don't understand why. And these are the same people that scream that we should reboot the sequel, the original trilogy. They want to recast Luke. Then you hear names of actors, and it's like Sebastian Stan, too tall. Let's talk about Leia. Recasting Leia. Would Billie Lourd be able to play that role? After all, Carrie Fisher was her mother. Or Millie Bobby Brown. This is actually easier. Okay, and what kind of show would you want? Do you want to reboot A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi? No. Again, there's no creativity in that. Give these characters some new adventures to go on. Give them Thrawn to fight. All right? Okay, give Han Solo an adventure where he goes off to basically take out Dr. Aphra once and for all. Okay? Give them some intriguing things. Okay, you don't need to reboot the original trilogy because you want to make it for a new generation. What? They can't get into the original trilogy? Are you fucking kidding me? Why should we, who love Star Wars, have to give up what we love because this generation of millennial pieces of shit can't stand their lives and basically want what they want at the expense of us? All right? They have Star Wars. They have the original trilogy, the prequels, the Clone Wars, Rebels. Why the fuck do they need to reboot everything? Because they're not given proper guidance, nor do they know how to think critically, nor are they expected to be creative. Their imaginations are gone. I mean, look, my nieces come over. One is staring diligently at her phone the entire fucking time. Not paying any attention to the conversation going on around her. She's staring at her fucking phone. I've seen it with other family members too. And it's like, look, we wonder why they're so screwed up. We're not fostering their imaginations. They should be outside playing with toys, pretending to be Han, Luke, and Leia like we did if they're Star Wars fans, or playing with figures, and they should be enjoying their wide open little minds and literally expanding their creativity. That's what you do when you're a child. You look at everything. You look at how things grow. You play with animals. You are intrigued by stories. And you're intrigued by let's pretend. Let's pretend we're cowboys. Let's pretend that we're, soldiers and we're fighting an enemy. Let's pretend that we're in Star Wars. All right, they don't do that anymore. And they're not encouraged by their millennial parents to do that either. Okay, This is where this reboot shit happens. We need to reboot it for a new generation. Bull fucking shit. How's about we offer our original trilogy to you and you enjoy it. And we come up with adventures for these characters, Han, Luke, and Leia, to go on where you can start to appreciate them more. Okay? You don't need to reboot these movies. You don't reboot Casablanca. You don't reboot Gone with the Wind. You don't reboot Bridge over the River Kwai, The Searchers, any of that. This is stupid. This is millennial self-centeredness and selfishness. And keep this Vaughn guy away from Lucasfilm. This is Steph signing out. I'll see you around the galaxy.